catering, what should I do?
So we kind of talked about it a little bit, but the tasting menu is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So you want to come to your caterer with some ideas. I love mashed potato bars, or I am a Mexican food fanatic, or we went on our first date at, a pizza place, like,
Right.
whatever kind of, and I would think about it, whether you have a planner or not. I would think about the food that matters to the two of you. Mm-hmm. So do you want a traditional steak, fish plated dinner, or are you guys wanting to do something that, is more representative of you guys as a couple? Either way is great. But start thinking about that. The food that's important to you, the food you love. Let them know, like, these are my favorite foods. These are the foods I hate. I don't ever want to see anything with green beans, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then that can help to kind of dictate what you see on that initial menu that fits within your budget, because you've shared your budget. And then they can put together a tasting menu based on that.
Yeah. And I think another thing to call out too is that, it's important to articulate as a couple what matters to you too. Cause like I remember when we were, planning our wedding, not to reference that too much, but like, we were getting married in New York, and it was a formal affair. And I'm originally from Alabama, if you didn't know that. And I really wanted some Southern influence in there, and we were able to incorporate that actually in the signature drinks, but we were also able to incorporate that in the rehearsal dinner. So it's not just the one meal that you can think about, it's also you can incorporate some of those traditions or influences, what have you, into the rehearsal dinner or even the brunch the next day.
Yeah, personality can play a huge influence on your food selection.
Yeah.
So definitely keep that in mind and talk about it as a couple, and talk about it and the formality too. I don't think we talked about that, but you want to know the formality of your event before you start your catering. If you're having a black tie dinner, you probably don't want to, have a buffet.
Right.
So, and if you're having a super casual dinner, then maybe a plated dinner is not a good fit. Right. I'm not saying you can't mix it up, but it does dictate your food choices in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as like expectations, what will I taste?
Typically, so this is all going to depend on the type of caterer you have.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always ask what you're going to be tasting. But typically you're going to taste a handful of appetizers, and then you usually choose, 3 to 4 past. It's harder to taste stations, so it just depends on what kind of stations you're looking at, if you're looking to have stations during cocktail hour. Mm-hmm. And then typically 2 to 3 entree choices, maybe a salad, maybe a dessert. If there's anything in there, that's really important to you to taste, I would make sure to let your caterer know that. Typically salads are like less likely to be tasted because they're more similar.
Right.
And you really care about the entrees and the appetizers, and that's
right.
typically the meat of your tasting.
That makes sense. So, you know more about this than I do, but you think about, especially with food, like a lot of times it's very seasonal.
Yeah.
So how does seasonality play a role when you're doing your tasting 6 months in advance? We're talking summer to winter.
Yeah, it can make a big difference. A lot of caterers will encourage you to taste in the same season, which is totally possible. It's a little harder with a plated meal because of the invitation, but you have a general idea. Like, if you're going to offer beef, fish, vegetarian, or beef, chicken, vegetarian. So you can kind of keep it more general on the plated if your caterer does want you to keep it in the season. A lot of caterers will have like special salads that maybe they say like, ooh, this strawberry salad's going to be great your time of the year because you're getting married during, the summer and it's strawberry season, and it's not going to be as good for an October wedding. We can still do it. It's just not going to be as like fresh.
Yeah. If
that's important to you, I would definitely ask your caterer that. I would ask your caterer, like, as far as seasonality, how is that affected? As far as like my venue, like maybe this dish in here, is amazing, but like, is my venue going to transfer? So those are kind of questions you can ask throughout the catering process.
Yeah. I think you said something really important though. As far as why you do your catering so far in advance, it's because of the invitation. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's the logic behind it, because the invitation has to go out how far in advance? I should know this. I know.
The invitation goes out 8 weeks in advance.
8 weeks in advance.
But you have to order your invitations a lot earlier than that. Especially if you're doing like a custom invitation, that turnaround time could be anywhere from a month to 2 months.
Yeah.
If you're doing a calligrapher, throw in another extra 4 to 6 weeks. Now you're looking at, 5 to 6 months before wedding day having to order those invitations.
I mean, you literally just came from an invitation meeting. Yeah. So you may
I just did this timeline myself.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. So then How long should you expect that the tasting is going to take?
It depends, but you can always ask your caterer. I would say up to 2 hours. It depends on how much you're tasting, how many questions you have, how many people are at your tasting. That can make a big difference. But I would say anywhere from an hour to 2 hours is a good general recommendation.
And where will it be?
Usually at your caterer's office. Now, if you're doing an in-house, maybe you're getting married at a hotel or a country club, then the tasting is going to be at the venue in that instance because it's an in-house caterer.
Okay. And who will be there?
Depends. So, it just depends on your caterer. They will have set limits on how many people can come to the catering tasting. That could be anywhere from like 2 to 4. I would say that's probably like average. And then you can always include like extra people, but there might be an additional cost. So it might be complimentary, maybe like up to 4 people, and then everyone else you pay for or something like that. But always ask your caterer. Of course, the 2 of you should go to the tasting together.
Yeah.
Any parents, especially if they are financially contributing and going to have an opinion on the menu, it's good for them to come as well. So I think that's good. I wouldn't go too far beyond that because it just gets to be too many opinions.
So what's the most you've ever seen at a tasting?
I think we did 8 at a tasting once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of
That's
people.
a whole meal.
It's a lot of opinions. It takes a lot longer. Up that 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think that one was like closer to 3. And it was a lot of opinions, Not everybody liked anything the same, Like everyone wanted a different appetizer.
Right, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and so then you have to have a very strong personality as a couple, I think, in order to get what you want if you're going to bring that many people to your tasting.
That's good advice. And then do planners normally go?
Yeah. It's perk of the job, I guess. Yeah, typically full service planners will go with you to your tasting. It's great to have them there because you're talking about a lot of logistics. Caterer plays a lot of logistics in the wedding day. It's also great to have someone who can kind of talk about your style. You might be looking at other, equipment.
Like a translator.
Yeah, and it's nice to have someone who's kind of your voice too. Like if you don't want to speak up, they know you pretty well at that point, and they'll be happy to speak up for you and say, I don't think that maybe this isn't working. What are other options? So it can be nice to have that person in your court.